They were about to bury Chief Adewale Ogunleye, one of Nigeria's wealthiest men, in front of senators, governors, and live TV cameras. The casket was sealed. The prayers had been said. His brother Colonel stood weeping at the microphone, already announcing himself as the new CEO. Then a small girl pushed through the crowd of 2,000 people, climbed onto the platform, grabbed the microphone with trembling hands, and screamed 3 words that made every heart stop. "He's not dead." The cameras froze. Colonel's face went pale. And when they opened that casket, what they found inside made the entire nation gasp in horror. This is Elmerum Stories, where African folktales meet real-life lessons that will change how you see the world. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now and help us reach 1,000 subscribers. Your support keeps these stories alive. Now, let's begin. Chief Adewale Ogunleye was a name that carried weight across Nigeria. From the dusty streets of Ibadan where he grew up with nothing, he had built an empire, the Ogunleye Group, a business giant with fingers in oil, agriculture, logistics, and technology. But what made him truly legendary wasn't his wealth. It was his heart. He built schools in villages so forgotten that Google Maps didn't recognize them. He funded hospitals where mothers gave birth on benches. He paid university fees for hundreds of children whose parents couldn't afford primary school. When people spoke his name, they smiled. But 6 years ago, tragedy struck. His wife, Ade Tutu, died in a car accident on 3rd Mainland Bridge. The pain nearly destroyed him. For months, he couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't think. His only anchor became his daughter, 10-year-old Amina. She had her mother's soft eyes and her father's sharp mind. They became inseparable. Every morning, he walked her to the car himself. Every night, they sat together on the balcony of their Victoria Island mansion, watching the Lagos lights flicker like fallen stars, talking about everything and nothing. Amina was brilliant. Not just book-smart, but observant. She noticed things adults missed. And there was one thing she had noticed for years, something that made her stomach twist every time it happened. Her uncle, Colonel Ogunleye. He was Chief Adewale's younger brother. Smooth-talking, always smiling, always dressed in expensive agbadas with gold watches that caught the light just right. He worked as chief operating officer of Ogunleye Group, but Amina saw through him. His smiles never reached his eyes. His compliments always had edges. And whenever he visited, he watched her father the way a hawk watches a mouse. "Amina, my dear niece," Colonel would say, patting her head with hands that felt too cold. "You're growing so fast. Soon you'll be running this empire." But Amina didn't want the empire. She just wanted her father. Then, 3 months ago, everything changed. Chief Adewale started complaining of chest pains. At first, it seemed minor. A tightness, a flutter, nothing serious. Dr. Musa, the family doctor who had treated the Ogunleyes for 15 years, ran tests and said it was stress-related. "You work too hard, Chief. You need rest." But Amina noticed a pattern that no one else saw. Her father only got worse after Colonel's visits. It started subtly. Colonel would come by for business meetings that lasted hours behind closed doors. Afterwards, her father would look pale, exhausted, his hand pressed against his chest. The first time, Amina thought it was coincidence. The second time, she paid closer attention. By the 5th time, she was certain. Something was happening in those meetings. The atmosphere in their mansion shifted like weather before a storm. Conversations that used to happen in open rooms now happened in whispers behind locked doors. The housekeepers moved quietly, eyes down. Even Ani Ronk, her father's older sister who lived in the guest wing, seemed nervous, always watching Colonel with suspicious eyes. One night, Amina couldn't sleep. She crept downstairs for water and heard voices coming from her father's study. Angry voices. "I've built this company with my own hands, Colonel. I won't hand it over to anyone. You're sick, brother. You need to think about succession. About Amina's future. Amina's future is secure. This conversation is over." "Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you don't have much time to." The door slammed. Amina ran back upstairs, her heart pounding so hard she thought it would break through her chest. 2 days later, Chief Adewale collapsed in his bedroom. Amina was the one who found him. She had gone to say goodnight and saw him lying on the floor, eyes half open, breathing shallow. She screamed. The housekeepers came running. Dr. Musa arrived within 20 minutes, his medical bag swinging, his face grave. "He's had a cardiac episode," Dr. Musa announced. "We need to stabilize him immediately." They moved Chief Adewale to his bed. Nurse Tayo, a quiet woman with gentle hands, was hired to provide round-the-clock care. For drips were set up. Machines beeped softly. For 3 days, Chief Adewale lay in that bed, weak but conscious. He could still smile at Amina, still squeeze her hand. "I'm not going anywhere, my angel," he whispered. "I promise. When my time comes, I'll say goodbye properly. I'll never leave you without saying goodbye." Amina held on to those words like a lifeline. But then Kunal started visiting more frequently. He would sit by his brother's bedside, speaking in low tones that Amina couldn't hear from the doorway. And every time Kunal left, her father seemed different, more tired, more distant. His eyes would flutter strangely, as if he was trying to stay awake, but couldn't. On the 7th night, Amina woke to the sound of crying. She ran to her father's room and found Nurse Tayo standing frozen, her hand over her mouth. Dr. Musa was checking for a pulse, his stethoscope pressed against Chief Adewale's chest. And Kunal stood in the corner, his face unreadable. "He's gone," Dr. Musa said quietly. "No," Amina whispered. "I'm sorry, Amina. Your father has passed." "And no," she screamed, rushing to the bed. She grabbed her father's hand. It was still warm. His chest was still. His eyes were closed. But something felt wrong. Terribly, horribly wrong. He didn't say goodbye. Kunal stepped forward, his voice soft and rehearsed. "Amina, my dear. I know this is hard, but we must be strong. Your father would want us to." "He's not dead," Amina said, her voice barely a whisper. Kunal blinked. "What?" "He promised me. He said he'd never leave without saying goodbye." "He didn't say goodbye. Child, grief makes us." "He's not dead." Dr. Musa exchanged a glance with Kunal. "Amina, I understand this is difficult, but I've confirmed it. There's no heartbeat, no breath. Your father is gone." But Amina knew. Deep in her bones, in the place where daughters know their fathers, she knew. Something was terribly, impossibly wrong. And by morning, Kunal had already made the announcement to the world. The news spread across Nigeria like wildfire. Radio stations interrupted their morning shows. Newspapers printed emergency editions. Social media exploded with tributes. "Nigeria loses a legend," the headlines screamed. "Chief Adewale Ogunleye, billionaire philanthropist, dead at 52. But inside the Victoria Island mansion, something darker was unfolding. Kunal moved with frightening efficiency. Within hours of the announcement, he had called an emergency board meeting. By afternoon, he had contacted funeral directors. By evening, arrangements were already being made at Tafawa Balewa Square, one of the largest venues in Lagos. "The funeral will be in 2 days, Kunal announced to the family, his voice heavy with false sorrow. "My brother was a public figure. We cannot delay. The nation needs closure." 2 days. Auntie Ronk stood up from her chair, her wrapper tied around her waist, her eyes sharp. 2 days? "Kunal, our brother just died. We haven't even processed this. Why the rush?" "There's no rush, sister. It's respect. Chief Adewale deserves a proper send-off, and every day we wait, the pressure builds. Governors want to attend. Senators. Business leaders. We must move quickly. Something doesn't feel right." Kunal's smile vanished for just a second, so fast that if you blinked, you'd miss it. "What are you suggesting, Ronk?" "I'm not suggesting anything. I'm saying we should slow down. Get a proper autopsy. Understand what happened. Dr. Musa has already signed the death certificate. Heart failure. It's tragic, but it's clear. Then why won't you let us see him properly? Why is the casket already sealed?" "It's for Amina's sake," Kunal said smoothly, glancing at the little girl sitting silently in the corner. "She shouldn't have to see her father like that. None of us should." But Amina wasn't listening to their argument. Her mind was racing, replaying everything she had seen. Her father's face. The way his chest lay still, but his skin was still warm. The strange look in Nurse Tayo's eyes before she ran out of the room. "Nurse Tayo." Amina stood up suddenly. "Where is Nurse Tayo?" The room went quiet. "She left," Kunal said. "Family emergency. Very sudden." "What kind of emergency?" "I don't know, child. These things happen." But Amina didn't believe him. Nurse Tayo had been with them for a week. She was professional, kind, careful. She wouldn't just disappear without saying anything. Not unless something made her run. That night, while the adults argued over funeral arrangements, Amina slipped into her father's bedroom. The machines had been removed. The forestand was gone. The bed was made, as if nothing had ever happened. But his belongings were still there, his watch on the nightstand, his phone charging by the lamp, his leather journal on the side table. And then she saw it. His smartwatch. Her father never went anywhere without it. He tracked his steps, his heart rate, his sleep. He was obsessed with data, always showing her graphs and laughing about how many flights of stairs he'd climbed. Amina picked it up, her hand shaking. The screen was dark, but when she pressed the button, it lit up. Battery, 38%. Last sync, 11:47 p.m., the night he died. Her fingers trembled as she navigated to the health app. Heart rate data. A full week of records. She scrolled to the final day, and what she saw made her blood run cold. The graph showed normal readings until 9:15 p.m. Then a sudden spike, 140 beats per minute. Then a sharp drop. Then, something impossible. Faint, irregular beats continued until 12:03 a.m. 3 hours after Dr. Musa declared him dead. Amina's breath caught in her throat. She took a screenshot. Then another. Then she pulled the data file and tried to figure out how to save it. Her father had once shown her how to export health data to his laptop, but the laptop was in his study, and Kunal had locked the study door. Think, Amina. Think. She remembered her father once mentioned cloud backup. She opened the settings, found the sync option, and saw that the data had been automatically uploaded. She grabbed a flash drive from her father's drawer, plugged it into his desktop computer in the corner, and began downloading everything. Health records, messages, calendar entries, everything. The download bar crept forward painfully slow. 47%, 63%, 81%. Footsteps in the hallway. Amina's heart hammered. She minimized the window and shoved the flash drive into her pocket just as the door opened. Kunal stood in the doorway. What are you doing here, Amina? I wanted to feel close to him. Kunal's eyes scanned the room, landing on the computer. The screen was dark, but the power light was still on. He stepped closer. It's late. You should be in bed. I couldn't sleep. Neither can I. He sat on the edge of the bed, his voice softening into something that sounded almost kind. I know you're hurting. I am too. Your father was my brother. My best friend. I would have done anything for him. Liar, Amina thought. But she nodded, keeping her face blank. These next few days will be hard, Kunal continued. But after the funeral, things will get better. I'll take care of you. I'll make sure the company continues his legacy. You'll want for nothing. I don't want the company, Amina said quietly. I want my father. Kunal's smile flickered. Of course. We all do. He stood and walked to the door, then paused. Amina, if you find anything of your father's, letters, documents, anything important, you'll bring them to me, won't you? For safekeeping. Amina felt the flash drive burning in her pocket. Yes, uncle. Good girl. The moment he left, Amina ran to her room and locked the door. She pulled out the flash drive and stared at it. This was evidence. Proof. But proof of what? That her father's heart kept beating after he was declared dead? What did that even mean? She needed help. Adult help. Someone who would believe her. The next morning, Amina told her teacher, Mrs. Bello, everything. Mrs. Bello was young, sharp, and one of the few people who had always treated Amina like her thoughts mattered. She listened without interrupting, her face growing more serious with every word. Amina, these are very serious accusations. I know, but I'm not lying. Look, she showed Mrs. Bello the screenshots on her father's iPad, which she had smuggled to school. Mrs. Bello stared at the heart rate data, her lips pressed thin. We need to take this to someone. Someone your father trusted. Who? Detective Femi Adebayo. He worked with your father on a corruption case 2 years ago. If anyone will take this seriously, it's him. That afternoon, they went to Detective Femi's office, a modest building in Acacia. He was a tall man with tired eyes and a face that had seen too much. But when Amina explained everything, his expression changed. He examined the smartwatch data, checked the timestamps, cross-referenced the declared time of death. This is impossible, he muttered. Unless what? Mrs. Bello asked. Detective Femi looked at Amina, then back at the screen. Unless he wasn't actually dead. The words hung in the air like smoke. There are substances, Detective Femi said slowly, very rare, very illegal, that can simulate death. No detectable heartbeat. No breath. But the person is alive. Barely, but alive. It's called suspended animation. I've only seen it once, in a trafficking case years ago. Amina felt her entire body go numb. So my father could still be. If this data is accurate, there's a chance. A small one. But Amina, the funeral is tomorrow. If we're going to stop this, we need to act now. Detective Femi made calls. Pulled favors. By evening, he had a court order to delay the burial pending investigation. But Kunnal's lawyers fought back hard, claiming emotional distress, accusing Amina of being manipulated, demanding psychiatric evaluation. The judge ruled in Kunnal's favor. The funeral would proceed as planned. Tafawa Balewa Square had never seen anything like it. Thousands of people filled the venue, senators in flowing igbatas, governors with their security details, business moguls in black suits, market women in matching ankara, students holding candles, journalists with cameras pointed at every angle. Giant screens displayed Chief Adewale's face, his smile frozen in time. Speakers played soft highlife music. The air smelled of incense and expensive perfume. At the center of it all sat a gleaming mahogany casket, sealed shut, surrounded by mountains of flowers. Amina sat in the front row, wearing a black dress that felt too tight, too hot, too wrong. Ani Ronk sat beside her, gripping her hand. The entire family was there, cousins, in-laws, distant relatives who hadn't spoken to her father in years, but showed up now to be seen. And at the podium stood Colonel Ogunleye, dressed in a pristine white agbada with gold embroidery, his face the perfect mask of grief. My brother, Colonel's voice boomed through the speakers, was more than family. He was Nigeria's son, a man who gave everything and asked for nothing. Today, we lay him to rest, but his legacy will live forever. The crowd murmured in agreement. Cameras flashed. A senator nodded solemnly. Amina felt sick. She glanced at the casket and remembered the smartwatch data. The faint heartbeats. The impossible timestamps. Detective Femi had tried everything, but the legal system moved too slowly. The court order was blocked. The appeals were denied. And now her father was about to be buried. Maybe she was wrong. Maybe grief had twisted her mind. Maybe. No. She thought of her father's promise. I'll never leave without saying goodbye. He hadn't said goodbye. Kunnal continued his speech, his voice rising with false emotion. And so, as the new chairman of Ogunleye Group, I vow to honor my brother's vision, to continue his work, to protect his daughter and ensure. Auntie Ronk stood up suddenly, her voice cutting through the ceremony like a blade. Why the rush, Kunnal? The square went silent. Every head turned. Kunnal blinked, his smile frozen. Excuse me. I said, why the rush? Auntie Ronk's voice shook, but didn't break. Our brother dies suddenly, no autopsy, sealed casket, buried in 2 days. Why? What are you hiding? Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Governors exchanged glances. Journalists leaned forward. Kunnal's jaw tightened. Sister, this is not the time. Then when is the time? After you bury him? After you take over everything? Security guards started moving toward Ani Ronk, but the crowd was watching now, hungry for drama. Kunnal raised a hand to stop them, his voice dropping into something colder. Sit down, Ronk. You're embarrassing yourself. I'm embarrassing you. And then Amina stood up. Her legs were shaking so badly she thought they'd give out. Her heart pounded in her ears like war drums. Every eye in Tafawa Balewa Square turned toward the small 10-year-old girl in the black dress. She walked toward the podium. Amina, sit down, Kunnal hissed. But she didn't stop. She climbed the steps, one by one, her hands trembling. A camera operator swung his lens toward her. The giant screens now showed her face, small, terrified, determined. She reached for the microphone. Kunnal grabbed her wrist. What do you think you're doing? Amina looked up at him, and for the first time, she saw it clearly, the fear behind his eyes. The desperation. The guilt. Let go of me, she said quietly. Amina. Let go. Something in her voice made him release her. She stepped to the microphone, and her voice, small but clear, rang out across the square. My name is Amina Ogunleye, and I need to tell you something about my father. 2,000 people held their breath. 3 months ago, my father got sick, but he only got worse after my uncle visited him. And 8 days ago, they said he died, but he didn't say goodbye. He promised he would never leave without saying goodbye. Kunnal's face had gone pale. This is grief talking. She's just a child. I found his smartwatch. Amina pulled it from her pocket and held it up. The screen zoomed in on the small device in her hand. It recorded his heart rate. And it shows that his heart was still beating 3 hours after Dr. Musa said he was dead. The square exploded with noise. Journalists shouted questions. Governors stood up. Security rushed toward the stage. "She's lying," Kunal shouted. "This is madness." But Amina's voice rose above everything, cracking with emotion, with fury, with truth. "He's not dead." And at that exact moment, Detective Femi Adebayo pushed through the crowd, flanked by police officers, holding up a document. "Stop this burial." His voice boomed through a megaphone. "I have an emergency court order. This casket will not be moved until it is opened and examined." Chaos erupted. Kunal tried to run but was blocked by security. The police surrounded the casket. A government pathologist was summoned. Cameras from every major news station in Nigeria captured every second. The pathologist approached the casket with gloved hands. The locks were removed. The seal was broken. Amina couldn't breathe. The lid was lifted. Chief Adewale Ogunleye lay inside, dressed in white, his hands folded across his chest, his face peaceful, motionless, still. For one horrible, crushing moment, Amina thought she had been wrong. That grief had made her see things that weren't there. That her father was truly. The pathologist leaned closer, pressed fingers against Chief Adewale's neck, pulled out a stethoscope, listened. The entire square was silent. And then the pathologist's eyes went wide. "He has a pulse." The words were barely a whisper, but the microphone caught them. "He has a pulse," the pathologist shouted. "This man is alive. Get an ambulance now." The square exploded. People screamed. Cameras swarmed. Amina collapsed to her knees, sobbing so hard she couldn't see. Ani Rank caught her, pulled her close, both of them shaking with impossible relief. Kunal tried to run but was tackled by police officers. He screamed, fought, cursed, but they dragged him away in handcuffs as the crowd shouted in fury. Chief Adewale was lifted from the casket by paramedics. An oxygen mask was placed over his face. His chest rose and fell, faint, but real. Amina pushed through the crowd and grabbed her father's hand. It was cold, but it squeezed back. Just barely. Just enough. "Daddy," she whispered. I knew you wouldn't leave me." At Lagos University Teaching Hospital, the doctors worked for hours. Chief Adewale had been injected with a substance called Z47, a rare, illegal compound used in black market organ trafficking. It induced a death-like state. No detectable pulse, no visible breathing, body temperature drop, pupil dilation. To any standard examination, the victim appeared dead. But they weren't. The drug kept the body in suspended animation for up to 72 hours. After that, without medical intervention, true death would follow. Chief Adewale had been just 11 hours away from the point of no return. Dr. Musa confessed everything under interrogation. Kunal had threatened his family, paid him 50 million Nigerian nairas, and forced him to administer the drug and falsify the death certificate. Nurse Tayo was found 3 days later, tied up in an abandoned warehouse in Ikorodu. Kunal had kidnapped her to prevent her from talking. The evidence against Kunal was overwhelming. Financial records showing black market drug purchases, recorded conversations, forged documents, testimonies from bribed officials, and a detailed plan to take over Ogunleye Group the moment his brother was buried. His trial lasted 6 months and became the most watched court case in Nigerian history. He showed no remorse, even as the judge sentenced him to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Chief Adewale recovered slowly. The drug had damaged his heart, his kidneys, his nervous system. But his mind was sharp, and his spirit unbroken. The first thing he did when he could speak was ask for his daughter. When Amina walked into his hospital room, he smiled. Weak, but real. "You saved my life," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "Your mother would be so proud of you." Amina climbed into the bed beside him, careful of the tubes and wires, and rested her head on his chest. She could hear his heartbeat, faint, irregular, but alive. "You promised you'd never leave without saying goodbye," she said. "And I kept that promise." 6 months later, Chief Adewale announced his retirement. He dissolved his majority shares in Ogunleye Group and established the Ogunleye Child Safety Foundation, dedicating 200 billion Nigerian nairas to protecting vulnerable children across Nigeria. The burial site at Tafawa Balewa Square was transformed into a children's playground, with a bronze plaque that read, *Second Chances, in honor of truth and courage. Asterisk. Amina became a national symbol. Schools invited her to speak. Organizations gave her awards. But she remained the same quiet, observant girl who simply paid attention when something felt wrong. Chief Adewale told journalists that during his suspended state, he had heard Amina's voice calling him back. Medical experts couldn't explain it, but he believed it. And so did everyone who heard the story. Sometimes the truth doesn't come from the loudest voice. It comes from the smallest one brave enough to speak. Amina's story reminds us that intuition matters, that love sees what others miss, and that courage has no age limit. Evil often wears a familiar face and hides behind a warm smile. But when we refuse to accept lies, when we pay attention to the whispers in our hearts, we can change everything. Chief Adewale's life was saved not by power or money, but by a daughter's love and refusal to let go. In African wisdom, we say, the child who asks questions does not become a fool. Amina asked the right questions, trusted what she felt, and saved her father's life. May we all have the courage to speak truth, even when the whole world tells us to stay silent. Like, subscribe, share, and comment the lesson you learned.